Are you looking for a faster video? Well, today it's a live stream and I know you're probably looking for a really nice and tidy edited down video, but I have ways for you to make it faster. You can click that little gear on the YouTube settings right there on the video and adjust the playback speed, make me sound like a chipmunk, and it'll go a lot faster. You can also look and see if there's timestamps for this project in the description, and if you're on a desktop, you can hover over the time bar at the bottom of the screen and see if it's chunked up into chapters, and then that way you can go directly to the step you're looking for. And lastly, you can also tap on the screen on the right hand side of the video picture or on the left hand side to make the video jump ahead, forward or backward if you're on a mobile device. And you can adjust that amount in your settings so you can have complete control over how much it jumps. So if you are on a desktop, you can use the fast forward or the rewind, and that will make it go faster as well. You can also enable subtitles, and the little CC on the screen will enable closed captioning. That way, if I am a little bit harder to understand with that double playback speed, the subtitles might help you out. All right, well, I know that it's not a nice little edited video, but if you sew with me, we'll get there together and it'll be lots of fun. And now for the live stream. Happy sewing! Hello. Happy Saturday. How's it going? All right, tell me if everything sounds and looks okay. I switch mics between Thursday and Saturday sometimes, so I want to make sure everything is working well. So today I'm going to be starting and finishing this sleeveless top here that we did all the pin tucks on Thursday. And I'm pretty happy with how this came out. I admit double gauze can be a challenge and my pin tucking is not very perfect. So hopefully that, you know, it's always a learning experience, right? Every time we sew. Hi, Carolyn. So I wasn't very precise when I did the front pin tucks, and I had more spacing between, and I explained why I thought that was. Awesome, Barbara, thank you. And then I added the center tuck to kind of take up that amount that my bodice grew a little bit so that my facings still fit. And we kind of mulled over all kinds of options on how to get rid of that. Honestly, I probably could have even just, you know, trimmed off and moved everything a little bit inward, you know. But this is a little bit cleaner doing it this way. So, hi Elena, hi Martina, awesome, thanks for telling me, guys. I appreciate it. Oh, it's a little bright, huh? It's a little bright. I had some other things under the camera when I was trying to figure out the lighting. So let me tone that down a little bit. It is pretty bright in person, like it's not blinding like that, but yeah, it is pretty cheerful. Cheerful's a good word for it. Let's see if we can do, let's see if we do this. Do we like that? Let's see. I kind of like a little bit of shadow because then you can kind of get some of the contrast, you know? All right, so, so we did pin tucks on the front and the back, and let me give you a little, if you're new to this project, this is where we started. We started with the shirt from the book, The Act of Sewing, and then we made it sleeveless, back opening, little ruffle peplum type thing, pin tucks, and we also did the one piece facing. And I think the thing you're gonna really find with this kind of facing and placket combo is how easy and fast it is to sew a placket. Hi Jeannie. Hello. How's it going? Because it's like done in a second. Basically, you're just like sewing around the perimeter and that's it. Like, I think with plackets, a lot of times we're like, oh God, I gotta be precise right now. And this feels a lot easier to do. So, hi Libby. Yeah, it is happy yellow. I just said that it's cheerful, huh? All right. So let me set the book aside. Oh, and look who I have with me. I have Molly with me. See her sleeping over there? She's got her head tucked under the table. Molly. Hi Flo, how's it going? Florentine, sorry. I think I've seen your maybe your Instagram or your email, and that's why I said that. All right, so we have our front and our back. So basically what we're gonna do now is construct this like it's a sleeveless top. Like, you know, if you did this treatment to one of your patterns and it didn't have the pin tucks, this is gonna be how you're gonna be sewing it together. So because this is probably gonna go pretty quickly, I'm gonna do French seams. I only have a 1/2 inch seam allowance though, so not my favorite seam allowance for French seams. We'll do our best. I mean, double gauze is so accurate, right? Yeah, Loki's not feeling good. Something's up with him. He's at the vet, and when my husband took him to the vet, I didn't want to leave Molly home alone because now she gets a little bit like, oh, you know. So I was like, oh, I can just bring her. She's chill. I couldn't have Loki here in stream. He'd want to be on my lap or under my feet on the pedal, you know. So, all right. So I'm gonna do a little bit less than the 1/4 inch seam to manage doing a French seam here. I'm hoping. Let's see. Ooh, 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 ooh. My bobbin is not in here correctly. Oh my goodness. Okay, wow. What happened? I just cleaned out my underside of my throat plate, and it just acted like I didn't have a bobbin at all. Let's see. Let's fix that. That would make such a cute dress. You know, and it's funny because I was someone commented on the Instagram post how like interested they are in pin tucks now. And so I was like, oh, well, if you like this, check out Jane and the Pin Tucks on Instagram because she has a lot of really great Instagram inspiration. It doesn't look like she's posted since the end of May. But if you scroll back and you look at like when most of her content was about her pin tucks, there is a dress like that. Like it's a sleeveless little pin tucks, no waist seam. It's very cute. Hi, Julia. Let's see if this is better now. Come on, Phoenix. Don't make me nervous like that. All right. Let's try that again. So I'm going to do this wrong sides together. Very narrow seam allowance. I actually changed my needle to a 14. And honestly, I think a 12 might be better on parts of this, except where the seam allowance gets a little bit thicker, the junctures and things, because the double gauze is very airy and open, but it is 2 layers of fabric and it can kind of add up a little bit. So it can get kind of thick in certain areas. And like I said, it's like ironing and sewing a sponge, so it kind of acts like that too. You think it's a very 60s kind of look. Ooh. This means that cleaning is a bad, no it doesn't. It just means I didn't get my bobbin in correctly. Let us do, we're not gonna do the side seams. I'm gonna go and iron this. There it is. It's called serger now. Hi Walter, nice to see you. Oh, let me pull up my phone here. Walter, I'm sorry that you, oh, look at that. That is not a right angle right there. See that? See that? And how much did I talk about that? I'm sorry about you running out of yarn on your project, Walter. That is no fun. All right, I'm gonna just press this one way. I'm gonna trim this one a little bit more. There's a lot of threads in here. I honestly didn't want to trim this too much because it's so narrow. It had a low ruffle and oh, I can totally picture that. That's so interesting, Barbara, because I think the very first attachment my daughter had to a garment, I'm kind of shocked by this. Do you guys remember me talking about the right angle thing? And maybe I didn't get this cut very straight. I don't know. The very first dress she was attached to, I've explained this one before, was a dress that my husband picked out for her at Target. And the bodice was knit, and there was a little ruffle at the bottom, which was woven, and so were the sleeves. It was a really interesting mix, but all exactly the same print and color. She loved that thing. She loved it so much that the front of it, you know, where her little belly stuck out, I want to say she was about 2. She might have been a little older. You know, little kids are like little potatoes and their bellies stick out. You know, and their belly's always touching things. That part of the dress got so grimy, I never could get it clean anymore. I had to sew the ruffles back on like 3 times. And finally, you know, it just didn't come out of the washing machine. It was just getting too small and everything. So, and she was pretty bummed. I'm just looking at this juncture and making sure that I got all this, because the double gauze, you can see it's got a lot of little threads. So, oh, you got 2 skeins, Walter. Nice. Nice, Sydney. You went on a drive? Sorry, guys. I am so itchy. I don't know what is going on. I'm just allergic to where I live. Can you see all that redness? Don't even know what that's from. It's everywhere. All right. This is like, I'm really surprised by that. It's going to make my strap kind of narrow by getting rid of that. You wouldn't leave that little bump in there, you know? I'm going to try and get rid of it very, very minimally. I think I can smooth the rest of that out with sewing. Are you just going on like a scenic drive, Sydney, or are you like, you have a destination in mind? Being really careful here. All right, so now we're gonna get out our facings. Oh no, we're gonna do our ruffles. Oh, I should have put my ruffles on first probably. Well, so now this is interesting. So now in my opinion, the order of operations would be, I would put the side seams together, the ruffle on, all in one, and then your facings. But the thing is that closes the side seam, and you absolutely need the side seams open with 1-piece facings. So we're gonna have to do like a little bit of backtrack, a little bit of trickery. So, oh, nice, Sydney. Oh, they opened 6 months before. Oh my gosh. Is there such to tack the French seam down? I mean, you could top stitch it down if you want, but if you're looking for that kind of, oh, thanks for joining, Mom Todd. If you're looking for that kind of like flat look, I would go for a flat felled seam, Carolyn. It's sewn kind of differently, and it is very nice and flat and kind of smooth. on the inside of the garment. Oh, that's cool, Sydney. That's kind of like a Laura Jean from Knitted Wit. She's a yarn dyer. Apricot jam. Oh my gosh. I am really, really jealous of that. All right, so what we're gonna do is, I'm trying to think, like, this is a little bit home sew-ish to do this, but it's honestly gonna be a nicer finish because I made the placket all one piece down the center front. Now, if this were done in the garment industry, what they would have done was made the placket probably in 2 pieces, or they would have made it a separate whole placket, like the extension and everything, and they would have just done this after the one-piece facing, you know? So I think it's kind of hard to illustrate why I'm talking about it this way, but when you do this one-piece facing, we're going to sew it around all these edges. We're going to do the neck and we're going to do the armholes, and then we're going to turn it inside out through these shoulders. But I don't really want to put my ruffles on. This is the other thing. If this was fast fashion, like it wasn't a very high quality ready-to-wear garment, or not high quality but lower budget, they would put the ruffle on the back, the ruffles on the front, and then they would seam it on the side seam. And that's just not a very nice technique. We can do better than that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our facing on for all the way down the center front, most of the way, like almost all the way. Do our side seams and then attach our ruffle, then finish our placket. That's my plan. Yeah, let us know what she has. That's pretty cool, Sydney. There's more and more companies out there like that too. All right, so this is our back facing, or front facing, and this is our back facing. And I just used some poplin fabric for the inner facing part. I didn't do anything fusible. So I'm just going to lay this on here. And we're going to treat this as one. Dang, my thumb is feeling funny. Okay. We're going to do the shoulders together first. It's a very clingy fabric. So what are you guys working on? All right. I'm not even going to perfectly line this up right now because as we go, it's going to line up around the perimeter edges. We don't really need to do a French seam on a facing. We didn't even need to do a French seam on the shoulders of that. That's so funny I did that because it's going to be fully inside. That was a little bit overkill. Doesn't hurt, but it does add bulk. All right, we're really only going to be able to do French seams at the side seam. That's about it. We can enclose the ruffle though. Oh, that sounds terrible. I should have thought of that when I was, before I cut it out and added some seam allowance at the ruffle. That's so funny that I'm facing that dilemma because right now I'm wearing this dress I made, and this is also double gauze, and I completely finished the waist seam, and it wasn't easy. So I'm making the fringe dress nice. Oh, Michelle. I forgot about the Texas top. You see, it's like one of those things when it's a sponsored stream, I kind of forget about them sometimes. And then I saw the scrap fabric the other day and I was like, oh, I kind of wanted to make one myself one. All right, so here's our top. So like I said, if you don't have a ruffle, you can go all the way down the center front, but we're not going to. All right, so going to line this up. It's very fussy. So right sides together. I trimmed my seams at the neck and the armhole down to 1/4 of an inch. So if you did the same, don't forget to use 1/4 inch seam allowance, all right? So I'm going to line this up at the shoulders here. I'm going to press that seam backwards since I did a French seam to the back. Or it's not to the back. The back is the back opening. Has the back opening, so it goes this way. I think we'll use a few pins today. It's a lot of fiddly layers. And maybe being a little more instructive about this would be a good thing. So, because I would probably just sew this edge and then find the next edge. And I think that that's because I trust my cutting. And I think if I were a little bit new, I might prepare it a little better. Like I would get all my edges lined up and make sure everything is indeed lining up, especially if you're doing something like double gauze. Because double gauze or linen or hemp, all those fibers tend to kind of grow and relax and kind of have a mind of their own as far as their shape. They're not as, I don't want to say stable, but they're not as stable, you know, as far as like how tightly they're woven. Hi, Corey. How's it going? Oh, that's nice, Carolyn. That's kind of a nice impetus to do that. Ooh, you got this. I'm all about finishing those jeans. Yeah. You're almost done. You have the waistband, back pockets, hem, and hardware. So you already did the fly? Oh, yeah. Granted, the waistband, I feel like the waistband at the center front gives, that's kind of one of my weak areas because I kind of tend to go, I'm almost done, and I start rushing, you know. All right, so I'm just kind of making my way around and kind of pinning this at a few key parts, like corners, seam junctures, end points. Remember, you have to have openings in your garment to be able to do this. If you close the circle of the armhole, it won't work. If you close the circle of the neck, it won't work. And it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it. And I totally understand if you don't believe me and you try it a few times to do it while closing it, because that's what it took for me to understand why it doesn't work. All right, so this is what we have so far, right? So we have our facing, lined up, you know, armhole, neckline, and then center front. And I'm not going to go all the way down when I sew this because I have this skirt ruffle and I want to attach that with the side seam sewn together first. So, oh, cool, Hannah. Did you take her class, the Chris Wood envelope? I saw someone was advertising it. Might have been her. Ooh, we got a party, Martina. Nice. Alder shorts. Yeah. You're doing a Luna tank. Okay. Is the Luna tank part of the loungewear set from Love Notions? So you guys probably already knew this before me, but next week is not the last week in June. And for some reason, I kind of kept telling myself, oh, I'm going to start at the end of June to do the menswear so that I can take that week off in July. I'm putting 2 pins here so I remember to stop. That's why I'm doing that. And then I at the back of my head, I kept thinking, I feel like there's more weeks here that I need to do the menswear. Like an extra week. And I was right. So I had a free week next week. And so I'm going to do 2 projects next week. Oh my gosh, Libby. Hey, you are a good sister. You want to be my sister? I have an excellent sister. I'm not trying to replace her. You can't have my sister either. Okay, so we're gonna start, I'm just gonna leave myself like a couple of inches here, just so I have room to, after I sew the side seam together, put on the ruffle, and then we'll finish the placket, all right? And like I said, I'm doing a 1/4 inch seam, you do your seam allowance. Yeah, that one is a fast sew, because right, you don't even have to, are all of her patterns 0 waist, Hannah? I'm just trying to get all these little threads from the double gauze to be in the seam allowance. It just makes it so much faster later and less fussy. You want to be precise about this because everything needs to line up eventually, so make sure you are. Make sure all my tucks are pressed this way. If you have any weird, buckling right here with your facing, you need to make sure that that's flat. If it's a little bit tight, that's okay. Just a tiny smidge tight. So small that you might not even notice it. And that's because that way the facing will pull to the inside and make sure that it doesn't, show on the right side. I feel like I'm not sure I'm getting a full 1/4 inch on the underside here. So I might need to go back and check that. Make sure you're catching all your layers. Yeah, me too, Anna. That I know, exactly. She posts, I swear she posts one of her dresses every day. I want to try the, what's going on here? Wait. Let's make sure we're getting our center. Oh, wait, and we aren't. I may need to ease this a little bit because of the tucks. Let's make sure we get our center at the center here. I made sure. I just lost a pin. Yeah, what's the one that she's always doing? It's not the, she does the envelope dress, but she does another one. I want to try it too. Oh, yeah, that's true, Libby. You don't really want to become a master in her fitting issues either, right? Because then you'd have to sew her clothes more often. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's 0 or minimal waist, exactly. So then, is it just a matter of you marking the fabric, and you don't even really have a pattern, right? I think that that's so fantastic if you couldn't buy a whole lot of fabric because it was really expensive or something. I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to do this seam on the neck side because I'm going to try and ease in a little bit here. I can see my double gauze is like slightly like flaring. Man, double gauze. It's literally the fabric with a mind of its own. It's not like satin charmeuse, but it's like sewing a sponge, like I keep saying. All right, no problem. All right, so let's continue on. Don't get lost in the sauce here. And so you can see my poplin here is so much crisper and tighter. It's like, just tell me what you want me to do, and I'm gonna do it. And the double gauze is like, yeah, I'll get around to it. And so they are a little bit different than each other. But that's what makes it kind of a good interfacing. And in the it's not fusible. I kind of wanted to keep the lightness and airiness of the double gauze. Get these threads in there. All right, and then you're going to turn your corner. problem with this poplin is I can't really see through it. So I can't tell if I'm staying on the edge. All right, here's my double pin. So I'm just gonna go a little bit past this. Leave all those threads there. All right, let's check it out. Make sure I got all my layers before I start snipping. Got a little bobble right here. Oh, is it the parasol? Parasol. Is that really what it's called? I was like, I'm pretty intrigued by it. I'm not sure about like if I would like the that line right here to fall. Like I don't want it to fall across my bust. See you, Martina. Have a good party. Wait. I know there can be two. Yeah. All right. All right, let's get, here's that pin I lost. Just checking it over. All right, so let's do the armholes. And make sure, like I said, you want to be precise because remember, we're going to open this up and we're going to sew it to the other side seam. So we want all this to line up. We want that seam to line up. We want our bottom edge to line up here. Don't be too willy-nilly about that. I can already feel this dropping down. Look at that. Maybe add a few more pins than I did. I think that would help. I don't even think of the double gauze as being slippery at all. Like you can see it's like it's like a clingy fabric, you know, when it's touching another fabric surface. But it does like end up in places I'm not expecting it to, like it moves. All right, so if your facing up here doesn't line up, because look at mine doesn't, remember I trimmed one? You want to go by the flattest, narrowest width. So this is nice and flat. We're going to go by this right here. So I'll just trim this off right here so I can see it like that, right? I want to hit that point right there. So I'm just going to blend it in. Don't line up the raw edges and let it buckle on the inside. You'll have to take it out. No two ways about it. It will show and it'll look weird and it'll feel weird too. All right, let's get that. Blend that in there. Now this is one pattern. You can actually serge your facing first if you want. I'm going to see how I feel about that. I might want to do it all at one time so it's continuous. That's kind of a nice touch, you know. All right, so let's do our other armhole. The parasol's the one, oh, cool, Elena. Yeah, because sometimes when I see it on her, I'm like, oh yeah, I like where that line hits. I'm also finding like after doing the not the bow line, the pinnacle top by Paper Cut, the one I did where I added the little inset above the V inset, like I added a neck inset, you leave a slit in the center back, and I'm not sure why you do that, if it's just because they're concerned you might not be able to get it over your head because you raised the inset up. I could see that. So you leave a slit in the back, and the slit is just, it's just too low. You know, if you had short hair, you may feel like you need to bring that slit up, and you can. There's absolutely enough room. We're bringing it up even a little bit, even a few inches. All right. Just making sure. Thought I saw some buckling. I just want to make sure. All right, so I missed my top right there. So I'm gonna ease this in a little better through here. Yeah, there's something going on between here and this armhole. I should have added more pins. That would have helped a lot. Did I start, where did I start that? Right here? Oh yeah, I did, okay. Don't you hate it when you start a little spot and then you're like, wait, it was right here. And then you go back and later on you're, you know, like after you've fixed it, you've done it, and then like the next day you're like, oh my gosh, why do I have this hole up here? And it's because that's where you had started your removal and you didn't know. Hi, Malin. How's it going? Is it still hot there? It's still hot here. My parents, their fridge broke and they can't get it fixed until July 6th. It's brand new. She was pretty upset. And in the States, we celebrate Father's Day tomorrow. So happy Father's Day to any of you who celebrate. Hello, Michelle. How's it going? All right. Let's get rid of that thread. And then we'll line this up a little better. It wants to behave. It really does. That's what I'm telling myself, at least. Just want to see where that spot is right there. Let's see. There. And wait, that is the, I probably didn't need to remove all that. Just this down here. All right. Everything's nice and flat. No buckling, okay? Get rid of my pins so we don't accidentally leave one inside there. And now we're gonna trim this armhole. So now if you used a wider seam allowance, I personally would trim this down. Oh, hey. My husband's here to pick up Molly. Molly, do you wanna go home?
Maybe not.
She doesn't really wanna go.
Go home, Molly. Come on.
She's like, where are you taking me? Look at that look. Oh my gosh. The squidgy look. Yeah, thank you. You can shut my door then.
Okay. Happy Juneteenth, everybody.
Yeah. And happy Father's Day.
Molly, come here.
Molly, go on, that way.
Come on. Come on. Go home.
Thanks. Let me know how Loki is, if you hear anything.
Yeah, I want to probably tell this afternoon.
Okay. All right. Our midweight linen or a midweight cotton. I say both. I think the linen though, because that is close fitting, you know? Yeah, Molly loves that chair. She's the only one who sits in it. I never sit in it. I sat in it the other day and I was like, oh, this is so nice. And then I was like, yeah, I can't sit here. It's too comfortable. All right, so trim this down because you're gonna have to clip it You know, you're gonna be clipping this edge. Ugh, I just feel like I have so messy here. All right, let's get this. And when you clip it, you don't want these like really huge flanges showing through the outside. It's best to just trim it down, because especially if you're doing a sleeveless garment, because it might show through your garment. Even if it doesn't show through as far as color goes, it might show through as far as a silhouette or bumps or something. So, bye-bye, Molly. She was so thrilled when I got to my office. She was really nervous that I took her alone, like, oh no, it's a bath or the vet. And the last time I did take her somewhere, you know, it was a bath. And when we showed up here, she was just like, yay! You know, it was so funny. I was like, dude, I don't always take you bad places. This is so awkward. If I were doing this not on camera, I would lay it on a table and use a rotary knife. You really don't want to have to accidentally, you don't want to accidentally trim the garment in a bad spot. And the other reason I like using 1/4 inch seams to begin with is hopefully you don't have to trim at all if you're more accurate than I was with the cutting or the sewing. Because mine's a little all over the place, and I know I keep blaming it on the double gauze, but it's just, double gauze is just not my thing. It's not my strongest fabric to sew. I like the way it feels on, and that's kind of about it. I don't really like sewing it. You'll make it in both. Yeah, right, Libby? Oh, I know. Yeah, Malin, thank you for showing me Lisa Bardot too. Yeah. Yeah, I was just watching one of her videos. I was watching the sticker making video. And then I got sidetracked onto something else. I don't really need to be that precise, but yeah. All right, so clip your corner here. I kind of do like I kind of clip around the corner. Clip around your corner at your placket. The double gauze is 2 open weave. I can't get too close. And now we're going to clip all our curves. You absolutely cannot skip this step. Why does I feel like there's a catch in my scissors? Yeah, that's true, Malin. What brushes have you bought from her? I've bought a few of hers, I think. I feel like brush management it's a whole other thing. We're talking about Procreate, you guys. Bunch of fangirls over Procreate in here. All right, so I did my neck. I made it sound like this is so easy to do, like, oh, this is such the fast, simple way to finish all these edges in one, and then it's taking forever to get to anything interesting looking, but I promise it's about to be pretty cool. The other kind of interesting thing about one-piece facings is that you don't generally understitch them because you can't get very far. You can if you want to, and you just go as far as you can, but it is pretty tricky to get into the spots that you sewed very far, because you can only go up to like right here, you know. And that's why they will make the facing smaller than the garment it sews to, because there's no understitching really. I don't really, yeah, Malin, I don't think I like seeing the process for some of those things, because then I'm like, oh, I could do that for this, you know, like she usually learns something kind of new. I think I've watched her magic paper video like 8 times because I still don't understand it. My dotted line brush. Oh, the dashed line or the dotted line? The jam is delicious, Barbara. Can I trade you? What could I trade you? I once traded this gal for stuff and she never sent it to me, and I was so bummed because I really wanted what we were trading for. And like, she was a knitwear designer, we knew each other, we actually lived near each other, and I don't know. All right, so now you're gonna turn this inside out. You're gonna go through these holes here. This is another reason that you might want to trim down the seam allowance here, because when you start trying to turn it inside out, you're gonna see it gets really bulky in here really quick. The multi-tonal markers. Oh, so it's so interesting what we all like. Okay, we really do need to start Procreate Club. You have too many of your brushes. Oh, the pencil box. Dash like stitches. I got that in a mid-century brush kit, and I think if you Google mid-century dashed line brush Procreate, you'll find it. We found it the other day in the stream chat, and it's by someone who sells on Etsy, and you can also get it on Design Cuts, and it's the same designer. Yeah, she does, Malin. I was thinking about looking at some things. See, look, see how thick that is? Look at that. You'll find that this is pretty hard to, this step can be really hard on certain fabrics. But here it comes. Oh, I have a little bit of edge folding through there. Wow. All right, so let's make sure. It's a good time making sure I got everything. Let's try it again. It doesn't matter what side you pull through, this side or this side, it works either way. So what would we want to do with Procreate Club? Because I feel like I don't really want to be, because I don't know a whole lot about it either. I'm just trying to share what I'm learning, because I feel like some of it's sewing related, and maybe you guys would be interested. Could we do it on like a Sunday, and can I be like at home, sitting in my chair, and it's casual? I can't coordinate one more thing. I'll start setting that up. I'm just gonna make it so casual that it's like, you show up, you know? Lighthouse, oh, there you go, Libby, there's one. I don't have fingernails right now. I could use a chopstick too. Well, usually I have a chopstick right there. If you can't find that one, Libby, I'll help you find it. What I like about that dashed brush is that you can scale it, whereas I find like, because I'm a noob, I don't really know what I'm looking for, like what the verbiage is called, but I want something I can scale. So sometimes you can scale the size you're applying it, but it's still the same size, so you're just revealing where it's at, you know? I like it when you can scale it. All right, so let's look at this top of this placket right here. We're gonna turn this, get a point best we can. Oh yeah, a ruler maybe could have worked. Yeah, we can all just jam together. Yeah, that's what I was kind of hoping for too. And like share where we're getting things and learning things. Maybe we can even, oh man, maybe we can even each just show a tip. I'm gonna turn this, I got a few threads there. See, this is why I didn't want to stitch too close to the edge. Those threads are probably still poking out, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reinforce this corner, and I'm gonna shorten my stitch length right here. Double gauze is kind of open weave. It's not a fabric you're going to get sharp tailoring points on, you know. So I can get rid of those threads, but now I feel more confident if... Oh my God. All right, stream's over. My awl is failing me right now. Craftas in pajamas. Exactly. Just reinforce that, so I'm a little scared to take out all that stitching. I'm gonna think about that. And I'm not gonna do anything to this right here except very gently nudge it. I'm not pulling it out. I'm just pushing it and nudging it. That's just a little thread right there. I can trim that. All right. We have a nice, clean, finished neckline and armhole, and then a mess right here at the placket. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't usually, like, my awl is pretty dull. And so when I'm pulling things, I'm usually, like I said, I'm kind of nudging it. I'm pinching pretty hard with my thumb and finger usually. But yeah, these little threads here. See, like that kind of nudged it out. Just kind of. And I'm like using the seam allowance. Try hard mode. Whew. All right, let's iron. Man, I'm kind of sore. So one area you can't understitch is this whole center front placket, and you just get as far up to the top as you can. So let's let that warm up a little bit. And then I'm just gonna press this seam allowance one direction so it's a little bit easier to press down on the edge, you know, kind of like I do on the French seams. Some fabrics you might not have to do that. It might just want to press nice on this edge here. And we don't really need to do this perfectly quite yet because it's not done. We're just kind of getting it in order and getting all of this. And we kind of want to make sure our facing's not rolling to the right side. So what I like to do is make sure I can kind of see the outer garment kind of poking up above my facing here. There's so many little threads everywhere. Hi Esme, how's it going? Oh, you like this kind of, yeah, it is like, that's what I was saying earlier. It's so cheerful. It's so bright. I wonder what color you would call this. It's like, sometimes I call colors close to this like sulfur, you know? I don't feel like that's a very flattering word for this color though. This is so cute. You're so sweet, Esme. Thank you. You're so nice. So now these tucks are going to want to push my facing to the right side. I don't think I've ever done a one-piece facing on a tucked garment. I didn't even think about that. It may not be the best finish actually for tucks, so we'll see. We'll come up with some ideas on how to deal with it if the facing does show. So first off, let's do this. And then do this. That's way easier. Look at that. It already wants to stay a little better. I think off the top of my head, one of the things you could do is stitch in the ditch, maybe. Ooh, nah, I don't know about that. Don't quote me on that. Okay. I promise the rest of the garment will be fast. Just think about, like, this seems probably like a really long process, but just think about it. You're finishing, you're sewing the placket, the neckline, the armholes. Basically, you're doing your collar, your sleeves, and your placket all in this step. That's why it's so big. All right, so let's see here. I want to look at getting, look at how nice and clean that is. Except for that spot where the seam allowance is poking through. I think I got everywhere. Not here yet. All right. All right. Lemon yellow. I mean, it is kind of lemon yellow, right? All right, so let me look at that one little spot where my seam allowance is bent back into the seam. God, it's so easy to get lost in here. Here it is right here. See that? I'm going to pull it apart pretty aggressively. I'm going to trim it. All right, so we're going to do our side seams now. And like I said, I've been doing the French seam on the, I did the French seam on the shoulders, which I didn't need to do. So we can totally do a French seam on the side seam here, and you're going to open up your facing. And what I like to do, because this, you really need to have a smooth juncture, because remember, when this is finished sewing, it's creating your armhole, right? So think about the end result here. So this is going to make your armhole. So this is one area where you kind of want to make sure that you're lining up your garment, because it's kind of almost better to be off at the bottom, depending on what the bottom of your garment is. But in this case, I would say make your seam right here, this juncture, spot on the best you can. And I like to stagger the seam allowances and kind of nest them together like that. So I'm going to do French seam though. Well, I like making it hard. So let's see here. We'll do this wrong sides together. I don't think I've ever done a French seam like this before, so it's I kind of wanted to see what it'd be like with a one-piece facing. Keeping it on that shorter stitch length from now on too. You can just overlock this too, you know, right sides together. Oh, I was just showing, for those that aren't doing a French seam, Michelle, I just wanted to kind of illustrate what that would look like to get it lined up and why. But I actually appreciate you saying that. Okay, so let's see here. Let's do our other one. Don't get anything twisted. I've definitely done that before, you know? Make sure you don't get it twisted. Yeah, I agree. I think the French seams also make it feel like a more secure garment. It's more stable. I noticed that even with my dresses that are like rayons and you know, seemingly to most people what you would consider like a more delicate fabric, the ones with the French seams, I just feel like they're rock solid. Like they just feel really good. But you are sewing the garment twice, so maybe that's why. I feel like I got my side seam a little stretched out there. All right, so let's trim off all these little threads. The Double Gauze loves putting out the threads. I think a rotary knife is easier and more accurate for that if you're comfortable with using one. And then here. So next week, because I have this now free week, it was very tempting to just to be like, you know what, then I'm going to finish these patterns. I always say that, and then I still don't finish. But I think I'm going to make the Friday Pattern Company Lucida dress. I'm going to make a bunch of changes to that pattern. Yeah, Walter, I've had a Mobius armhole before. Oh, thank you, Sydney. No one had replied, but yeah, maybe someone did. I missed it. Thank you for telling me that. And then it's funny you say that right now because I just started talking about what I'm doing next week. So, and then the other thing I'm going to do is the Luna Loungewear Camisole by Love Notions. It was a $5 pattern last Friday. I kind of told everyone in my stories, like, hey, I'm getting this. I'll be sewing it. So then I can now make camisoles with the rest of the underwear fabric that I left. And I have, hopefully my flat fold elastic comes in time. I mean my fold over, not flat fold. Look at how threadbare that is right there. Oof. Yeah, that is like barely cotton there. Wow. I feel like I gotta fix that a little bit. I'm gonna iron this up here. I'm gonna fix that down there. Ooh, canary. I like that. Okay. Let's get my French seam ready. Man, this fabric. I was saying to someone, like, I don't think if I saw this fabric at the fabric store, I would probably be like, oh, that's cute, but that's not for me. And now after making this, I would so buy this fabric. You know? All right, so let's see. Here's the one I want to do a little bit bigger seam allowance right here, because I didn't really catch it in there very good. Start at the bottom and kind of blend it in here. I don't have a full seam allowance for a French seam, so I'm really trying to scrimp. All right. I felt kind of bad doing that, Libby. I was like, oh yeah, I just feel like because you know what, the thing is, like, I actually love that dress. And I think when I really love a dress, I'm like, okay, I'm really going to perfect this now. You know what I mean? And I wasn't pointing those things out as if they're wrong with the pattern. That's just how they fit me, you know? And that pattern is a very basic pattern. So I don't ever expect patterns that are really basic like that to fit me perfectly. So yeah, and I know that I did alter that pattern already. So I know I've already started working on it. All right, ooh, okay, I'm actually kind of shocked I did pretty good there. But now, you know, when it, you know, turns. The French seam is a little thick though. Look at that, it's pretty thick, even though it is, yeah, maybe not splitting it would be better. Huh. Would that have changed that? Maybe not, but you can do your facing. You can stitch in the ditch. When we're all done, we can stitch in the ditch to hold it down. But look at that, it's a nice transition. I'm kind of curious right now, but I'm scared to take out the seam here. You know, I'm actually having second thoughts. Maybe you shouldn't split this. It's not a sleeve with an armhole. Let's test it. Let's test it. Yeah, right, Libby? I know, but I felt like, oh gosh, I just feel like I just said, here's all the things wrong with this. And I wasn't saying about the pattern, it's just the way it fits me. You know? So when I first made that dress for Hearts Fabric, I was like, I'm really nervous to try this on and take a picture of it, you know? I didn't do any fit changes. They requested the size I wear, and I tried it on. I was like, oh my gosh, this actually fit me really good. And I was lighter then. You know, that was like 2 years ago. Gosh, was that 2 years ago? No. Yeah, that was 2 years ago. Holy moly. And I just remember thinking, like, oh, cool, this is pretty cute. So that's when I made the polka dot one for me. And I have to admit, every time I see it in the closet, I always think, oh, I don't know, I don't think that's going to look very good on me today. And then it does, though. It's so comfortable and easy going. I think it's because that seam is high up, which is good for me, for my body. And in the A line, also, it's kind of hangs away from the body. And The other interesting thing about that for my body type is that because you gather it up right here, you can gather it up as much or as little as you want. And the first time you put it on, you're like, whoa. And then you kind of fiddle with that and it's like, oh, okay. It also makes the gathers hang down from there, which can kind of cover up belly, you know? So I think that there's a lot of good things going for that. I should have said all those things, but all right, I'm gonna try pushing all my seam allowance one direction. This is kind of seeming familiar. Like I feel like I figured this out once before, you know, and I'm relearning this lesson. So let's try it. Okay, let's get rid of these little threads because of course I created 50 billion of them by fiddling with it. And now sew it. Get it going, and now I can kind of fiddle with this some more. There's my back stitch thread. Let's get rid of those. Like, if my fan, I have a fan going on behind me. My office got 92 in here yesterday. It was definitely ready to go home when I got to go home. All right, so I think it's a little harder to match up your seam. So make sure you place it and don't let your presser foot push this top layer off of what you just matched. So, you know, place it on there, pin it if you need to. I'm gonna use my awl to hold it. And once I have my needle in there, I'm gonna now fiddle with the rest and hope that that worked. Let's see. Not as good of matching, but not bad. And do I feel like that's less bulky? I don't feel like it's less bulky, but I do feel like it's slightly easier to turn the facing to the inside. Let's see if we can see a visual difference. Yeah, this one's bulkier. Huh. Kind of trying to think. Maybe hammering it would be a good thing. All right, so where are we at now? Let's overlock our facing right now. Put our ruffle on, and then we're almost done. Oh, that's awesome, Beverly. I'm glad. Yeah, I've been thinking about, I like doing the pattern hacks. You know, I'd really like to go through I have a bin of garments here that I don't wear anymore, like ready to wear, and I'd like to turn them into something. Okay, so because now I have this continuous, I sewed my side seam together, I now have one long overlocking step here. So make sure your facing, if it's not attached like mine isn't, is nice and flat. And I'm gonna make this a little narrower too. Let's see. I think that right? All right, I think that makes it narrower. Yeah, okay. I'm kind of seeing it, make sure the stitching looks pretty good. I think that'll work. All right, and get all these little threads to the edge here. Trim them off now. Make sure your garment doesn't sneak under. I know that goes probably without saying, but it is kind of dicey when you get up here at this spot where it's attached to the placket and the shoulder armhole. This is why you're really thankful you did a nice smooth transition on these seams, on these, the curves there when these two overlapped, the neck facing and the armhole. And now I'm going to press this seam towards the back, the underarm seam. This is the kind of order of operation step that makes it so that when someone's looking at it, they may be like, ooh, what order did they sew this in? It's kind of slick. Get all these threads down there. Alright, I'm at the side seam again. Pressing that seam allowance. I might get a little tuck right there. My gauze was a little bit like billowy above my interfacing. Okay, here we are back at this spot right here where your garment is sure to creep under there, so be careful. You could make it, you could have made it higher up, but this is so narrow. On mine, it's so narrow right here that I would have had such a tight curve right here. That could have presented a whole nother issue. I totally agree with you, Beverly. It's kind of, for me, like, I really wish we had more sponsored streams because I don't want to buy more patterns. I don't need patterns. I can draft them. And so I buy them because I want to make things people need. But at the same time, I'm just like, I'm running out of space. All right, so here's what it's going to look like. It's nice and clean finish. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Yours will look nicer if it's not in something so rumply as this double gauze. There we go. Totally done with your neck, your armholes, and almost your placket. Maybe you are if you didn't do a ruffle. And so now we're going to attach this ruffle to the bottom here. And finish our placket. That's it. It is, Esme. I'm loving it. I'm really loving it. All right, so let's get the ruffle out. Yeah, it's kind of just so, it's got that new machine feel, you know, it's kind of sews like butter, you know. I like it. So yeah, so next week we'll do the Lucida dress, and I think that might be a good stream for the fit things I'm going to deal with. I'm going to do a French seam here. This is basically a side seam. Let's do that wrong sides together. Oh my goodness, here we go. And I don't know, Beverly, were you here when I was talking about, like, what is the ethical ramifications of saying, oh, hey, that pattern company just came out with this pattern. Let me show you how to make it. I would never do that, you guys. I just want to be clear that I wouldn't do that. But don't be surprised if I show you elements on, oh, you already have, you know, you like the neckline of that top that just came out, let's do that. You know, let me show you how to draft that. Because maybe you don't want to buy another pattern. Maybe you have bought all their patterns and you don't really like everything but one thing about that pattern. I don't know. Or maybe it doesn't come in your size and you have a sloper. You're like, yeah, show me how to draft that so I can make it. The number of people who are going to not buy a pattern because I showed them how to draft a collar, I feel like it'll be like 2. You know? So, all right, let me iron these side seams. I wonder how the differential, how much it would gather up my edge here. I don't think it would do enough. On the surgery, you know how it has a differential, and a differential is when the machine changes the tension of your fabric. So you can have a plus or minus differential, and so with one it's going to scrunch up your fabric, and then with the other it's going to stretch it out. But what I've found with the differential on most sergers is that it's never enough for what you're sewing it to. It's fine if you're doing chiffon, something really lightweight, but this is really lightweight. I wonder if I don't have any fabrics here. That's awesome, Esme. I'm glad you like it. It's pretty cool. I love these fabrics she sent. Oh, I forgot to iron it on the side, but even though I didn't, see, all I did right here was press the seam allowance one direction, and I didn't do this step where I fold the fabric and then iron it. Even though I didn't, it's really easy to do because I did that first step. Yeah, and so I also think that maybe visiting my pile of clothes that I can't wear anymore, and kind of looking at ways to use them in different garments or whatever, that might be kind of fun to do, you know? And just kind of seeing, like, how useful is it to refurbish? What's the word? Upcycle, you know? Some of them could be donated, but, you know, let's face it, they don't really want bad stuff to donate. Oh, look at this. There's a little snag in this right here. Let's make sure we fix that. All right, so I'm not going to hem the bottom of this quite yet because, wait, let me think about this. Yeah. I was just thinking about that, Barbara. I'm not, because I want to show you this little technique for attaching a placket with a hem. And I'm not going to pre-do that. Oh yeah, Allison, does yours do it really scrunched? I tried this one once and I was like, okay, that's about the same as my old one. And I was just like, oh, you know. It's great with really lightweight fabrics. It might be good for this. And I think, like, if you want to use your differential to do gathering and you're designing how many gathers go into your garment, I could probably have a whole video just on this, because what you would do is do a test of your fabric, figure out the ratio, and then design your pattern to be that ratio, so that way you can use your differential and not even have to do what I'm about to do, which is kind of painful, you know? All right, so I have a center notch right here, and I just did a little V so I can see it. I'm gonna make it a little deeper. This is a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I like doing a V for a center on a gathered edge because it's easier to find when it's all gathered up rather than a notch. You know what I mean? All right, so let's put in our gathers. I'm going to put in 2 rows here. And I'm not going to go all the way up to the edge because remember we have this placket. We don't want gathers in the placket area. But I am going to go a little bit in there because you know how when you gather up at the ends it's never very like gathered up. So I'm going to make a longer thread there. I already lengthened my stitch because I had made it really pretty short. This is my back, so I'm going to press my seam allowance to the back. I see lots of tricks for doing this. Dental floss and the one where people pull on the back to, with the, you know, using the feed dogs. Those are great. You can do that. This works. The old school way works great too. All right, I'm gonna make my tail a little longer before I cut. And I'm gonna do one more row. I used to always skip this, but the second row makes a big difference on how the gathers look. It looks so much better. Whoa, 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 whoa. All right, I'm gonna gather, I think from the back side. Oh, thanks, Carolyn. You know, I wish I knew how often that happens, Carolyn, because I don't think people realize that you guys are buying as much as you are. Because I remember one time someone like Louise said, I think I've bought every pattern you've sewn in here. But yeah, see, look at how much nicer, see how the gathers look so nice when you have 2 rows. So if you're doing double gauze like me, this is going to get messy pretty quickly. So when you're sliding your ruffles along, and you could break the threads here, I wouldn't break them now. You could have done the backs and then the front separately and have it overlap here. I'm going to try and do the whole thing. Try not to rub this raw edge here. Keep your thumb and your finger below it. If you remember anything, it'll help that edge not get as thready. I think I did 1.5 ratio, right? It's not a huge amount. Oh, really interesting. She only sews from her block. They ask for hi Eliza, they ask for her patterns. So does she draft patterns to sell as well? People ask for her patterns. I mean, if she's only doing it from her block, what do you mean they're asking for her patterns? Always better late than never, Eliza. You doing some more gardening? It's 96 here right now. It's cooler up in paradise than down at my house. Not by much. I saw a quail family walk by the other day, and the quails the babies were the size of golf balls. Hi, Carrie. How's it going? It's only been an hour and a half. I usually try and do like the bigger part of the project on a Saturday, so it's longer. All right, so make sure I'm just trying to get to my halfway point there. If this is any bigger, I would have split this up. The reason I don't like splitting it up though is because I think it works better if you overlap your threads. So then you'd have 4 rows right here, and that gets kind of hard. Hi Punching, how's it going? Nice! That's awesome. I liked making that bag. I kind of over sewed it in that video though, didn't I? Because I was like, how could I do this without any hand sewing? Oh, I see, Beverly. That's pretty cool she does that. I've thought about doing that. I'm really glad someone's doing that. All right, so there's my halfway point. I'm sure I have more gathers than I need in here. So let's just hold it up and get an idea, because now we've got our gathers all the way to the center point. It's right here. And we'll know what to do for the other side. Line up your side seams. Oh, that's cool, Carrie. Happy shopping, Sydney. How fun. Oh, you have to make several eventually anyway. They make good like holiday gifts and birthday gifts. I think I made those for my family right after the fire, and they kind of needed things like that, you know. It was perfect. I made my brother and my dad duffel bags. Barely remember doing that. Sydney, you have to tell us what you got, but I don't think you're going to be done before we're done. So we may have to ask for a report of what you bought. Am I doing any tricks, Carolyn? I feel like I'm doing it just like the old school way, you know? The old school way works really good. I like the way it looks. And I'm also, because I'm not on a home machine, those other tricks don't really go with my machine, and I'm not going to sit there and try and figure out how to hack it to do that, you know, because I think that's just, I've then lost all the time I would be saving by doing it for the rest of my life on. All right, get it past this. Why are you acting? Ooh, you don't really want to go past this side seam, do you? Come on, come on. We need you to get into here. There we go. Sometimes you gotta break it in. You're basically, you know, the thread is a casing. It's like elastic in a casing, right? Oh, I see, Carolyn. Yeah, and you know, like I said, if it's too long of a great of a distance and you're worried, like if I were doing a heavier weight fabric or something tighter woven, I would have absolutely broken it up into sections, because the threads would break at the side seams if it were any heavier than this. I'm just getting away with it because it's double gauze. We're getting there. This is when someone will say, why can't you just edit this part out? Gosh, I wish I could. Sometimes I do. Mostly I have to get all my laundry out of all those threads, because sometimes the threads on my new fabric are strangling my clothes because I didn't take the time to serge it first. Hi, Terry. You said the exact same thing Eliza did, Terry. Better late than never. How are you doing? Are you gardening too? Is the brood fed? All right, we're getting there. We might have enough gathers in this whole thing, but we need some in this little section here. Like this whole thing might be the right length, but we gotta distribute. It's so easy down here because it's kind of broken in. But the side seam's getting better. All right. If any tier 3 patrons are here that have Zoom today, don't forget it's at 4. This is the 3rd Saturday Zoom. They've been so fun lately. Okay. I don't feel like I added anything to that section. Let's get more in here. Like added all that, and then I just I don't know where it went. It's getting swallowed up. All right, Terry. And you said you're cutting out those cargo shorts yesterday? You're doing the same Wardrobe by Me ones, right? All right. There's my center right there. Okay. So now how am I going to finish this seam? The easiest thing to do would be to sew it on and then overlock it. Doing a French seam here is pretty tricky. I did it on this waist and it's kind of bulky. Oh no, you know what I did on my waist? I did a flat felled seam. And so a flat felled seam would be more along the lines of, you know, you sew it on, right? And you would kind of offset your seam here like this. Sew it on your seam allowance, and then what you would have is this extra, and you would wrap it around and edge stitch it down, right? That would be a flat felled seam. You would also see this stitching on the right side, and so you can see on my garment, I don't know if you can see that. See, there is 2 rows of stitching. I stitched the waist seam and then I did the edge of the flat felling, and I did that other row here so that it looked more natural to have the other one there. So while I really like the idea of flat felling because it seemed like, oh, that'll be an easier way to handle the bulk of this seam and clean finish it, which it is, the outside has more stitch lines. So on something this delicate, I don't know if we really want 2 rows of top stitching. That will most likely be a little bit wiggly because it's so thick. If we do a French seam, I mean, we can do a French seam. I just feel like it's going to be really tricky. Should we just try it, especially through here with the tucks? Oof. I think we should just overlock it. I think we should just overlock it. If you don't have the tucks, or if you're feeling pretty adventurous, do the French seam if you want. I don't think it's impossible at all. I've done it. It's just, it is a little bit bulky. So, all right, so I'm going to stagger these seams here. And let's just put in our landmark. So here's my center I could easily find. And then we'll put this, let's get all these little threads from my pin tucks towards the seam allowance. We don't want them poking up through the waist. Mark the center right there. Put the side seam. Get all your landmarks together, and your center, front, or back, whatever your placket is at, these line up just like that. And then now let's see, we have too many gathers there. I think that's about right. There's a little too much here. Yeah, I think so, punching, but at the same time, the waist is pretty resilient to feeling things like that. As far, I mean, like on your inner thigh, that's why you see in jeans, they do flat felled because it's more flush to the jeans and less bulk there, so it's more comfortable. Isn't it funny how this one looks? I mean, I guess this one could lose a little bit too, huh? This one looks better over here though. And if you don't have a serger and you don't want to do, you're scared of the bulk of doing a French seam, you can still, you know, zigzag it, the edge, or pinking shears. You can also bind it. I know all of you are like, why would I do that? But I've definitely done that where I bind the seam with extra fabric, and once you kind of up your binding game, you can even do some really nice like smooth fabrics, like you know, just like not a satin per se, that would be crazy. But you can get some nice smooth fabrics that are thin and maybe more slippery. I think you know what I'm talking about. You've probably seen it. Hi, Ursula. Oh, Barbara. Oh, did you miss it? Did you miss the seam? I did that earlier. Yeah, Beverly. I haven't been binding in a bit. I haven't bound very much lately, except on those rugs. All right. Let's get this pin in here. If you want to add another pin, maybe halfway, you feel like your gathers are evenly distributed. Remember, you're leaving a little flat section here because we have a 1/4 inch seam allowance and we have this 1 inch placket. Sometimes you do see gathers go all the way through a placket, but if you're going to put buttons and buttonholes there, it does make it a little bit tricky. So make sure that you leave a little bit flat here. And then the other thing we're thinking about right now is when our placket overlaps, that this seam right here is going to line up. This pin needs to be thrown away. I'm not going to add more pins here, but let's check out our seam here. Do it now, because all of this up top is finished. You don't really have any other ways to correct it if it's off once you've sewn this. So let's make sure those still line up, and make sure then now I'll just make sure my seam allowance is accurate. Hi Fiona, how's it going? How to do, I think that's a typo. I'm trying to think what it would be. Shearing? I mean, I just did gathering, and gathering and shearing is the same thing. I don't like that term shearing, to be honest. I think it's kind of misleading. All right, so I'm putting all these threads in the seam allowance, especially making sure the gathering threads are in the seam allowance and I don't accidentally sew over them. And then I also like to pull my gathers kind of straight out when I go to sew on them. Oh, you did, Eliza? What'd you get? Okay, make sure all these threads, look at them all. So many threads. For the build out of the chest area. Oh. Cool. Shape shearing, yeah. I think that's how I feel when I'm overlocking things. So yeah, kind of straighten out your gathers here. I'm being a little bit picky, I know. We're almost done though, so why not? Especially right here. Remember when I got a little bit off track with this second row of gathering stitches? It got really close to the first row, and so it won't look straight if I follow it as my sew line. I gotta make sure I'm staying on the seam allowance. Get all these threads. I'm sure there's some threads that are going to be poking down there through the seam, but let's try and get as many as possible not to be. Okay. Look at all these threads. It's going to be so satisfying to use the serger. We should just use it just for that reason alone. I'm being really particular today. I really want these to look nice. There's something about gathers when they look nice. They look so nice. They hang so nicely. And I don't really enjoy doing them, so it shows in a lot of my garments. Yeah, I wasn't sure what she meant either, Eliza. Maybe she meant she's working on her pattern. I feel like I could use a few more gathers right here. Oh, light brown mocha boiled wool. That sounds nice. All these threads, moving them. We're at the halfway point. See, when they kind of do this, when gathers do this at the waist, then you get a little tuck on the outside. You might not notice it, but you start noticing things like that. That's exactly the type of thing a pin gets hidden in. You're wearing it and you're like, oh, something's poking me. Oh, there's this pin in this fold here. Okay. Keep it straight. Oh, okay. Because you're already working on yours. That's why. Yeah. I know you started early. I love that you do all these things. Like, you're just like working on all these things. You're living the life. You know, like you're authentic. The authentic sewer. I don't even know why you watch me, Terry. Like, you're going to be more of an expert. I hope you're holding my hand. All right, home stretch. Sorry, I'm doing this as a snail's pace here. There's so many threads. If I had just pinned it all, I would be sewing these threads into the seam because I would just be like, do, 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 you know, and sew along and not stop and check because it's so tempting, you know, just to keep going and not stop. Look at all those threads that build up just by handling it. All right, so get this nice and lined up here. Remember, I'm paying attention to my seam allowance here at the waist and making sure all these gathering threads are also to the seam allowance. All right, now double check your placket right now. Do not pass go or collect sewing complete, you know, badges. You need to check your placket right now. And be honest about it, you know? All right. Let's look at our gathers here. Looks pretty good. Make sure because sometimes often this little edge will flip back into the seam and show on the outside, especially if it's a garment with a lot of gathers. It's really hard to get them all in there sometimes, and so you'll have it kind of so gathered up in here that it flips towards itself, and it's just nothing you're doing wrong. You just got to kind of stay on top of it and manage it. All right, let's serge this. I'm so glad, Terry. We're in it together, man. Okay, let's serge this. Make sure I don't have any pins. And I do this. I make sure that there's none in these little folds right here. Better now than on your 3-year-old niece when she's wearing it. I think I'm going to leave my gathering stitches in. I'm not going to remove it. Typically, you'll see me remove them. I'm just going to trim a little bit off here. And obviously you don't want to serge a pin, so that's another reason why you're looking for them. I'm always arranging my gathers down here still a little bit. If you sew your seam closer to the seam I just sewed, definitely make sure you make these kind of perpendicular. And this is also just my step of making sure I'm not accidentally catching the dress or shirt in there. I like that, Libby. Yeah, I think Terry's right there with that too, you know, the key to good tailoring is enjoying the process. Oh, Terry, why aren't you showing that to the Facebook group? I want to see your buttonhole. I will definitely cry for you. Yeah, Eliza, I can see that. It's hard, like complex projects, you don't really want to lose your place. And you also, like when you get your sewing time and you think, oh, all I have is that really big complex project, you may not even go into your sewing room. Maybe it's like knitting. You know, I always had one big project going and then like a mindless project. And then, you know, maybe one small complex project, you know. Right. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. Nice and flat. Ooh! There goes my iron. It's hot. I'm picking it up by the cord right away. Woo! Good thing the rug is super cushy. The serger is, yes, it is a machine that it is separate, and it's definitely not 100% essential for sewing. It does make certain steps really fast and easy like you just saw, and what it does, and you've seen this inside your ready-to-wear garments that you buy, is it trims the edge, and as it's trimming the edge, there's a blade that runs alongside the sewing, kind of out in front of it, and it's trimming and finishing. I'm trying to show you what it looks like, and finishing the edge at the same time, and in some cases you can set it up to do a seam as well. So it's sewing the seam, finishing the edge, and trimming it all at one time. You see a lot of knits, and it also can be nice and stretchy for knits. You'll see me sew a lot of things, though, with French seams without it, because I don't want to assume everybody has a serger. You're going to see me using it more often now, because I just got a brand new one, though, because I'm into it. It's really fun. Yeah, I know. Those big complex projects. Some of them are definitely, yeah, I'm like, no, I don't want to take that on. Okay, so here we go. Here is our little top with the ruffle at the bottom. And we're pretty much at the last step. So let's finish sewing this placket to the edge here. Get all these threads here, and then we'll be at our hemming step. You're going to press the seam of the ruffle up, always up, waist seams, whatever. I don't care what the instructions say. The only reason you're going to push it down is if there's some sort of style element that's preventing you from doing it. And I have definitely seen some companies say push it down, and it doesn't look right. It's push it up. All right, so I'm just going to go straight down here, but I am going to do something with this hem here. Look at all these threads. Man. If you have a fabric that's super thready, it's okay to overlock these edges even if you don't need to, to keep it nice and tidy. Every knitters don't use sergers though. I don't know why they say that. But I will say on my knitwear, like when I knit sweaters, especially when I was a new knitter, new to knitting sweaters, and I wasn't getting the fit right, well, what skills did I have? I had tons of garment fitting skills, and so I would absolutely take my serger to my sweater. I mean, it's my first sweater. Why not? You know, like, it's not precious. Anything I make is not precious, you know? And so I might as well get it to fit me so that I wear it rather than it being a waste of 80 hours of time, you know? And a serger is pretty handy for knitwear since knitting can kind of unravel on you. All right, so now we have our placket is finished. Now you see why I waited, so that we have this nice clean seam here. What is that right there, except for the thread poking out? I just really didn't get that thread in there, did I? You're done. Done. You done, Sydney? Oh, you have my knitting machines? That's nice. Okay. Merchant Mills, cotton hem double gauze, and a bit of the woven. Oh. No, every single seam does not need to be serged or overlocked. Okay. So this is the front. I think that this shirt, because it's in double gauze, could stand to have the waist seam pressed up and top stitched down. I should have done that before I finished sewing the placket on, so that my back stitch would be in here, but that's okay. I'm going to do that because the double gauze otherwise kind of makes it look a little bit lumpier than it is. I really wish I would have thought about it before I sewed my placket on. I was just eager. This is also a way for me to kind of get these tucks to kind of lay nicely down here. It's okay to top stitch through your tucks. I'm just doing it like less than 1/8 of an inch away. Even if you pressed the seam up, it's not going to stay sometimes. And with this fabric being kind of boingy and spongy, and look right here with these tucks, it's going to definitely push the seam down because this is heavier and stiffer. It's winning the war with that. It's still not a reason to have your waist seam go down. It just looks nicer when the gathers fall below the seam like this. Yeah, these threads are, they're very much in this fabric kind. Yeah, Elena, that I like that idea too. You have your palette cleansers. I love that. All right, so I'm just kind of pushing that seam up. And make sure that when you're doing this, you don't get your little tucks, like, you don't push on them. You really want to keep them straight and up and down, perpendicular to the seam there. They want to wiggle, trust me. Everybody wants to wiggle when you don't want them to wiggle. I got hardly any threads poking out. This makes it so much faster and so much better than pulling on those threads, because especially with double gauze, some of those threads could be still woven into the fabric, and if I pull on them, I'll put a run in the fabric, and you've seen me do that before, remember? So yeah, you gotta be careful. All right. More tucks. Should have done it before I did my placket. All right, it's looking really good. All right, so now for the hem. So when you have a placket that comes straight down all the way to the hem, now you're gonna see a lot of patterns tell you to just hem this up like this and turn it over, you know, and maybe whip stitch it. I've seen all kinds of ways to do it, but really a nice clean way to do it is to stitch across the end of your placket here at the hem allowance. And mine was, I think it's only a 1/2 inch on this garment, but or wait, this is the ruffle. I made it 3/4 inch. I actually drafted that, that's right. So I added a 3/4 inch hem. So I'm gonna go, and you wanna go straight across. Make sure you're doing it as straight to the garment and perpendicular to this edge, otherwise it'll do this, you know, when you overlap your placket. You want it to be like this, right? So just stitch it across, just like that. Let go. And this is sometimes also why you see plackets drafted like this. Let me show you. It'll look a little bit like this. You see plackets that look like that? This is why. And so now we're going to cut across this corner that we just sewed, like that. We're going to do this on both sides. And then you turn it to the right side. Let me trim this a little bit more right here. This is why I kind of stitch around the corner. You never know, it just depends on the fabric. All right, so now turn this right side out. I'll be really careful with my awl this time and do it on the inside and just push it out. Push the seam allowance. There's so much better ways to do that too. You can tie threads there and pull it, and it's, you know, there's a wooden stick, you know, all that. Okay, so now look, this looks nice and finished, straight, and now you have this guide right here, and you're gonna roll your hem in there, and you can just start and stop here. You don't usually go all the way to the edge there. You're gonna just start and stop at the facing edge there. All right, so let's do this side. Look at all these threads. Whew. All right, let's double check our placket right now, because we wanna make sure also that we got the same ruffle depth, right? So we checked our waist seam here, or this, you know, this ruffle seam a few times. And even if it does get off a little bit, maybe it gets stretched or whatever, you have one last chance of at least doing the overall length right here, like this. So make sure, because remember, this is overlapping. You don't want one hanging out from below, right? So we'll just put some pins here, like that. And then let's just see how far away that is. Yeah, it's right at that 3/4 line. right here. All right, so let's fold it up. Make sure this is nice and flat. You don't want to do this where you're sloppy about sewing this on and you do this, I'm exaggerating it, you do this and you sew across here, and then what it does is, because you've done that, it will hang below, or the reverse, right? You don't want it to pull. You want it nice and flat right here. Okay, I'm going to double check that one because I hadn't trimmed this placket on this side, so I want to make sure that I got it on there good. I think I did. Let's do a trial run. I'm just going to turn it right side out. I feel like I was a little shy, but maybe, well, that's pretty good. All right, so now let's trim that one. And you can just, I like to just trim this placket. So normally I would draft the placket so it's like that, you know, kind of up here. And you can actually do lots of drafting to where this just sews like as if you're sewing it right sides together. You don't even know what you're doing. You don't even know this is going to be the end result. It's pretty tricky. Tricky as in like pretty cool. But a lot of folks don't build that into their patterns because it's kind of probably hard to explain how to sew it. All right. Why don't I have a back stitch? Did I run out of bobbin? Wow. Literally on the last seam. Hi Debbie. Yeah, look at that. I ran out of bobbin. I'm on my hem stitch. Huh, Mrs. Necro, I don't know. Yeah, skirt making videos. Hi, Glenn. Yeah, it's on most men's shirts, but it's on women's stuff too. You know, and I agree with you though. Like you see it more on men's, and I don't know why that is, because it's a useful technique on any clothing. But I think it's because they're using more tailored garments, and I don't consider it a tailoring technique. It's just it's an easy way to hem it. And there's even ways where, like say you're doing a placket that's not a one-piece facing, maybe it is a narrow, like a stitched down traditional shirt placket. I do it to where when I'm stitching that down, I come down and then I do the hem, and it's all one stitch, and it looks really nice, you know? So see how this hem is a little narrower than the other, and that might happen because because what rules here is the plackets matching rather than the hem being the same. You want the plackets to match. So, so those of you who did the Sewing Weekender, I found the gals who do dead stock fabric. Craft House, I think is called. They're called Craft House Supply or Craft House something. And they get dead stock from true fashion designers around them. And they don't often know what the content is. And I thought, gosh, I'm kind of new to them, so maybe they have content about this. But I thought, man, they probably learned so much about trying to identify fibers, and they do burn tests and things like that. I'm wondering if they have like videos about that, you know. All right, so make sure all this is nice and flat, and then you're going to start doing your hem here. So there's ways where you do this and you don't even have to, like you would just sew the hem before you put on the placket. There's lots of ways to do this little nifty trick, so I just wanted to show you one of the easiest ways. Since we're kind of doing it after the fact, I didn't draft it in there. All right, so we have this fold line. We know exactly where we want our hem to finish. This would normally also be trimmed away, that's why I kind of opened it up. Both of them would have that cut out, that notch. Notch. I liked it, Eliza. I haven't finished some of the Sunday content. I think it's well worth the money, for sure. And I like that you can do it at your own pace. I wish it was a little bit more interactive. Like, I thought there was going to be some live stuff, but I understand why there wouldn't be because of time zones and things, you know. I'd love to do something live. But, you know, like I would do, like if I did it, I would do 2 different lives and I would just do them at 2 different times so that I can accommodate the most people or something, you know? Because I wouldn't mind doing, I could do a live stream at 8 p.m. at night, you know, or 8 in the morning. I don't mind. It's not like I have to do that regularly, so. And then it would give people a chance. So maybe some year they'll do that. I don't know. I'm just doing a little rolled hem and I'm just kind of doing it as I go. There's too many threads. I should have trimmed them before I started. Get rid of all these threads. Don't be like me. Just get rid of them first. Otherwise you have to stop all the time. Let's get rid of more. Did you do it, Eliza, or were you just looking for a review? Anyone else here do it? Beverly probably did. Oh, you still don't, Malin? It's been like a year? No, it's been since December for you? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Wow. It's not always just smell either, but yeah, that's a big part of it. Oh yeah, Libby. It's not my method. I've seen people talk about it for years, and I've just always forget to do it. I literally forget to do it. So I think the gist of it is that you wash the fabric, do not dry it in the dryer, iron it dry, and then you do it again. I'll try and figure out who did the latest post on it. Yeah. It's not like my technique. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I imagine that they've probably gotten to the point where they're like, they burn fibers, talking about the craft house gals. I'll bet they burn the fibers of fabrics that they do know the content of, so then they have like a reference. You know, like, I wonder what this smells like or acts like when we burn it. And then they know when they come across that, they're like, oh yeah, that was whatever, you know. All right, so I'm getting down to this shorter edge here, narrower hem allowance here. I'm losing my ability to talk, like usual. I keep seeing something move. Maybe it's my lace curtain. Could I have the fan on? I keep thinking it's a deer down there. Oh, okay, Elena. So maybe they won't do that. I think my feedback would be that I think that they should make a playlist of all that stuff so that you can just continuously watch it. You don't have to go, like I had to keep going back to the email, you know, to find the next link. But that's kind of minor. It's not a big deal. It's not that much of an inconvenience, except that I was on different devices, you know. All right, so make sure you get this still flat, right? You want to make sure that your placket's still flat, because what I do is when I'm hemming this edge, I go up onto the placket just a tiny bit, you know, just like 1/4 of an inch. You can go further if you want, but it starts getting awkward where you're like, ooh, how far do I go? I don't want to go all the way to the center, you know, to the edge here. And then it looks just like that, right? That's nice and clean. So I'm feeling a little bit like, you know, this could stand to have maybe some edge stitching. I don't know, you know, like maybe I'll understitch it. But the buttons and buttonholes are going to fix all that. So let's check it out. It needs a good press. This is the back that we're looking at here. It has a back button closure. Should we try it on the dress form? But that's the back. Oh, I think you'll like it, Sydney. All right. That's pretty cute. Let's try it on the dress form. You thought it was live. Yeah, it's not. None of it is. It's all pre-recorded. You can smell and taste chocolate. Well, progress, right? I might, Eliza. I can show that if you want me to show it. I think that it needs a good press right now to see where it really needs the attention, because at the center front neckline, it wants to poke to the outside as well, and I'm wondering maybe if I should edge stitch it because of the pleats. Now remember, I never tried on this pattern, this shirt pattern, before I did all this. So it could have needed, it looks a little smaller than the top was. This might be a little too small for me. It's a little too small for my dress form. I'll put a couple pins in it, but I don't know. I might be able to fit. I always think something's too small, and then I realize it's just how the sticky cover I have on the dress form, the one that I put on there. I've been thinking about making a new cover for her, and I would probably, I need more pins. I would probably make it maybe in like some of the microfiber underwear fabric, you know, something slippery. Okay, come on. Ooh, around the boobs there. There we go. Still lots of threads. All right, not bad. I could probably wear this actually. It's much more A-line than I realized, the shirt. So this is kind of the copy. Oh, I forgot my tag of this dingy old thing. So this was my shirt that inspired this. It's kind of different, but just roughly the same details. Mine buttons in the front. I like it. I think it's really cute. I like how far the armholes come in, and that's probably because I knew from this that this was too far out. So yeah, I think Eliza's right. We could do some stitch in the ditch right here to hold the facing. And then I need to decide, do I top stitch this neckline so that the facing doesn't pull out? Because the tucks are so stiff, it's kind of, the facing's losing the battle there, you know? It's not so bad up here because it's not such a deep curve. I kind of like the A-line. It looks pretty good though. Yeah, it's pretty cute. Looks really good on camera. Back's a little, I didn't get this very straight when I pinned it. A little wiggly. Well, cool. That's pretty awesome. Those were really fun projects, you know? Doing the acts of sewing projects were really fun. It was fun to design some garments and then sew them up and already have the starting garment, you know? This is a size large, and then I think it goes up to 5XL, pretty sure. I think it goes down to extra small. I mentioned the sizing in the other streams though, like the size, the actual measurements, so. Yeah, all right, let me show you how I'll stitch in the ditch. And it needs a good press too, so. Wait, what did you guys name her? I forgot. You guys came up with kind of a better name for her than I had. Okay, Sydney, drive safe. Enjoy your purchases. Yeah, right, Malin? I was wondering that too. Yeah, and then you know, it would mean I would also be going down here, and so then I could have gone across to the hem, which I love that idea. All right, so as far as the understitch or stitch in the ditch. Oh, this one's twisted. That's what it is too. All right, so we're gonna get this lined up here. Now, sometimes when you're lining up facings, it's better to go by how the facing is sitting in the armhole. So if this seam were like angled way over here, but that's how it wanted to lay flat, keep it that way. Well, that's what I had said, Bearamy, like Beatrice and Saramy. But you guys came up with something better, I thought. So like I said, you want to make sure that your, you know, everything's laying nice and flat. I do stitch in the ditch at shoulders often. And so then when you figured out like, okay, that's how I want it to be, and make sure that, you know, you're seeing a little peek of fabric from the outside. Also make sure you don't have to flip the garment around. I think it's better to do this from the right side. Sorry, I'm being all awkward. I'm thinking about too many things at once right now. Let's get this under here and then we'll position it. Get this nice and flat. Right? You don't want any pulling. That's how we want it to look, just like this, right? Press this down, and we're gonna pull apart the fabric right here and stitch down in this ditch. You can also hand sew this, and the other thing you can do, I'll show you on the other side. You don't have to go all the way to the top either. You can just do the bottom part here, pull that seam apart. I'm gonna hand do my machine at first. Try and sink your needle into the seam each time. Now, if you get off, don't sweat it too much. You really probably won't notice it, and no one else will either. So it'll look like that, but you really can't see. And then on the inside, you might see it completely, but no one's gonna look at the inside, right? All right, and then another strategy is if you really want it to be invisible, or you're really nervous about it, or maybe the fabric really can't take needle holes very well, like they really show, and then if you're worried like, oh gosh, I need to reposition that, what you can do is just stitch it to the side seam or the seam, right? Just like that. And then you don't have any stitching going through the garment to the right side. So it would be like this. And like I said, you don't have to go all the way to the top. You just need to do like an inch or so down here. And then it's, you know, you don't have anything showing on the right side. It's kind of a nice way to do it. And sometimes that works really well. In fact, we'll do it on here just so we can see. So it's the same thing. It's a little fiddlier to where you have to hold it in here. So what I like to do when I'm doing this is I try and pin it over here and pin it over here so that I know it won't shift past that point. And I only have to manage this right here, because then when you're turning it, try and get this nice and smooth and hold this firm and then pull it. And now we're just going to stitch on this piece for as much as we can. I'm going to pull this with my other hand like this. I'm going to slide it in there. I'm being really firm and really careful. I'm not shifting anything. I do this on shoulders as well. I feel like there's a thread here. There it is, yeah. So it looks like that and like that. But on the outside, it's still loose and you don't have any stitch in the ditch. I figured that out on my own. I'm sure it's a thing and it might even be called something. I've never heard it called anything. But I figured doing that out on my own because of what I was trying to do it on. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, I cannot stitch in the ditch on this fabric. There's no way. And I did it like that instead. I think because of the whatever it was, it had to be completely sleek on the outside. So, all right, so let's look at the top stitching. So let's do it. The reason I'm going to do it, I think if this were your garment and you didn't mind a little bit of this gentle facing showing here, could we fix that a little more? We could probably clip into this more and maybe even understitch it between here and here. But this is what I'm thinking. I have a feeling that eventually Sonia might be doing like, she might be doing like trunk shows or maybe a book signing, or maybe she'll have an open studio, right? And she has a bunch of garments that people like me have made from her book, and they're going to be like schlepping around with her. And she's not going to probably want to press and iron and wash every single one of those pieces of clothing every time she's going anywhere. So why not try and get it to look as nice as possible with as little fuss as possible, right? So that's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to continue my hem to the center front here. And I'm going to turn, I'm looking at the spacing of this one. And I'm just going to edge stitch this all the way around the neckline. Kind of pushing the fabric like this so I don't get any like diagonal torque lines. Now when we put buttons and buttonholes on this, that would definitely stabilize the placket. I probably didn't need to do the center front or the center back edge here. It's just a way to show you how you can tie it in with the hem. All right, so now we're at the neck, so let's make sure we don't get that facing showing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of pull on the facing in here, right here. I'm going to pull on it a little bit, make sure it's to the inside. Make sure those pleats are perpendicular to the edge. Keep all this nice and flat, and then we're getting to our front side here. careful here since it's the front. I'm gonna pull that facing a little bit, make sure, keep all those pleats perpendicular to the edge. And I forgot to mention that I ended up taking out the stitching on that center pleat just to kind of bring it back to ground zero to decide what we wanted to do, but I kind of like it, and I'm just kind of hoping it weathers better than it could, you know? Because it looks nice just like that. It looks pretty like it's supposed to be that way, you know? Barbara. What would I have hand sewed there? What do you think? Like, do you think I could have hand sewed that neckline to not... Oh, you're talking about the underarm. Yeah, you can hand sew that too. This is not the sew hand sew. This is not the hand sew channel, Barbara. Alright, so one of the things I worry about with doing this kind of stitching, because I think what you can end up doing is getting it to flare, and you don't really want that to happen. So make sure when you're doing this stitching, keep it all as relaxed as possible and kind of control what it's doing, you know, keep it nice and flat. You can see my tucks are getting a little bit mushed. The double gauze is so like boingy, I can kind of see it kind of, I don't know how to put it. It's just like above the surface here. I keep thinking I'm getting torquing, and I'm surprised it's not. Stop looking like you're torquing. All right, last few stitches. Still forgot to put my label in. But we can attach it to the bottom of the facing. And we're back at that hem. So now it looks like one continuous stitch there. All right, boingy. Yeah, I feel like it's like sewing on a sponge. All right, so let's see, what will this look like on the inside? See where I'm gonna put my label. This is the back, and it would be, this would be over, right? Right over left, like this. Let me make sure. It's the same even though it's on the back. Still right over left as if you're wearing it, pretty sure. Oh, it's like this, that's what it is, yeah. Get rid of all these threads. Yeah, right, Debbie? The school of mom had me do that. Yeah, I had that school via a teacher. You know, if this were store-bought, it'd probably be like a stitched-on label, you know, right there. We could probably do something like that. I can kind of stitch this down. And we'll stitch all the way around. Should have done this before I sewed my facing on, you know? Because it's gonna be awkward. I hope I have some buttons. Oof. I feel like this is where it all falls apart. You ever feel that way? You're like, all right, I'm done. Let me spill tomato sauce on it. yesterday, or wait, that was day before yesterday, I was sitting here eating lunch after the stream. And for the first time ever, I dropped my whole lunch upside down. It wasn't the whole lunch. I was almost done, thankfully, but I dropped it right here on the new rug. I'm so glad that these come with some sort of like, you know, weird coating, because I don't have a lot of tools here to deal with that. All right, rotate. There we go. That label's not meant for that kind of application, but you know, it works in a pinch. If I had like a little large, it's a little crooked. Oops. Oh, Carrie. Is that a dog or a bird? I have to ask with you. I did top stitch the label. I'm allowed to do that? Is that what you're saying? I mean, even look at this serge. This is a little bit on the bias. You can see it's kind of stretched out. It's fine. It'll be fine once it's laundered and ironed and everything, but cool. That looks pretty cute. This whole thing could use a good ironing. I think it'll look cute then. All right, you made it. I'll probably have to remove that label and sew it again, and that's when I'll rip the garment. So many threads, man. Double gauze. Oh! Okay. Oh, he's a talk. Loki's the same way. Like if I'm doing the bed or the covers, he immediately is crawling on top of this huge pile of down comforters, you know? It's like, yeah, don't you think? It looks pretty cute. Can I make this any higher? There you go. You can kind of see the whole thing. I can't get it all in there. It looks cute. Yay! I hope Sonia likes it. I don't even think she's seen the crop top yet. Exactly, Eliza. All right, well, thanks, you guys. So let me show you what I'm making next week. So, and you know, thanks to Sonia Phillip for sending us the book, because that's pretty cool that we could make these things. And hopefully they help other people trying to sew some things from the book too. All right, so this is the Lucida dress. Very simple, like there's very few seams. I've made one in watermelon fabric that is so cute and hanging up at Hearts fabric, and then I made one in the green with the white polka dots. And I mentioned in my Friday Sews video some of the changes I want to make, so I think I might explore that, making some of those changes next week. I've thought about getting rid of this waist seam altogether. It's not that it's not necessary. It's totally great because you can have this flare, but it's knit, so you might be able to get rid of it. I don't know, especially here. I think I might get rid of it there. I don't know though. So most likely it'll stay, but I am going to work on this whole shoulder, sleeve, armhole area, and I'm going to get rid of the pooling and fabric there. That's about it. So, and then I'm going to use this fabric here, right? I think that's pretty cute. This is Friday Pattern Company. You can see right there. And I'll tell you about the sizing. If I'm not mistaken, it does have lots of sizes. Yeah. I thought it had more sizes than this. You might check on their website. It goes from a 33-inch bust to a 46-inch bust, a 35-inch hip to a 49-inch hip. And oh, and this is a good opportunity to mention that the Curvy Sewing Collective has now made a dedicated website handle for their database of curvy sewing patterns, and nothing's allowed on that unless it's a 60-inch hip or over. I think the website is curvysewingdatabase.com if you're interested in that. So, oh, it's wool. Nice. That's cool. All right, so I'm going to do this and this. And then the other thing I'm going to be making is a couple of camisoles, and I have some fold over elastic on its way to me. I'm using this Luna Loungewear. This one absolutely comes in a ton of sizes. It also comes with these other elements. I like the photos. I don't think I have any of the photos here because I've been trying to cut down the number of pages I'm printing. Let's make sure. But there is lots of really happy smiling faces of all sizes wearing any of these garments, and they look really good on all those sizes. So this is goes to XXX. I was just looking at a size chart. Okay, so the size chart goes from a 33-inch bust to a 49.5-inch bust. Oh, the sizing isn't as it's like barely bigger than the Lucida. A 35.5-inch hip to a 51.5-inch hip. So, dang, I picked this because I thought it would be more sizes. Oh, it is more sizes. I just didn't print those. No. I'm wrong. No. I think it only goes to XXL. Yeah, it only goes to XXL. So it does only go to these sizes. It's a start. If you find a camisole in a size that's more inclusive, let me know, because I'll check it out and see if the sewing will be the same. So that's cool, Barbara. Good for them. The Lucida dress isn't from a book. That's just a pattern you can buy from Friday Pattern Company. I'm just doing it because I want to. And then, like I said, I'm going to get some fold over elastic for the finishing. There's also a shelf bra on this. I won't be doing that. I don't like those. They don't fit me. Oh, yeah, absolutely, Beverly. I will absolutely check the strap length. Yeah, I feel like that's the one thing that's such a wild card, because even if they give you measurements, your elastic may stretch more or less. So, yeah, the nightgown, that's nice. That'd be a nice nightgown. It looks looser on the people. Like, it looks like a good nightgown, you know? All right, you guys, so I'll see you Wednesday for cutting both of these. My fold over elastic doesn't show up till like Thursday, so I'm going to do the Lucida first. And then I'll just do the camisoles at the end on Saturday. All right? All right, you guys, have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys then. And then look for a calendar for next week through July. It'll be posted on the community tab here on YouTube and also on Instagram. So nice, Malin. Yeah, you're welcome, Jeannie. Yeah, thanks for coming, you guys. Really appreciate it. I always love this. Why are you doing that? Stop doing that. Thank you. And see you later. I'll see you later, Walter. So yeah, thanks you guys. If you want to support me, there's a few ways in the description. I've been getting notifications about Amazon Prime Day. I don't really know what that is, but if you buy anything on Amazon and you use one of my links, even if it's not one of my links is, it does help me out. So if you have someone you like supporting that has Amazon affiliated links and you are an Amazon shopper and you're going to take part in Amazon Prime Day, which is 2 days long, I think that's 20th and 21st or 21st and 22nd. I'm sorry, I don't know. You can use their link and buy whatever you're buying. As long as you started from their link, they'll get something for it. So, all right, you guys. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Bye.